Hi, this is Gary with MACMOST.com. Let's take a look at managing your data in numbers using filters and categories. MACMOST is brought to you thanks to a great group of more than 1,000 supporters. Go to MACMOST.com/Patreon. There you could read more about the Patreon campaign, join us, and get exclusive content and course discounts. Now, a lot of times I see people setting up their data in numbers in different tables. Like, for instance, maybe having a table for each month of data. Maybe even having each table in a separate sheet. And this is a bad idea because it's really hard to create calculations based on your data when you have it divided up into different tables when the data is essentially the same. So for instance, take a look at what I've done here. On one sheet I've got one table and this has all my data in it. The data consists basically of records with a date, a product, an amount, and a sale. Every record is on one row of the table and there are no blank rows or no extra rows. I'm not repeating the header information somewhere here. I'm not leaving blank lines to group things together or anything. The table just goes on and on with one record per row, nothing extra at the end. Now you may think, well, this is great, but I really want to be able to group things together. I want to see what the records for 1 month look like. I want to total them up. I want to be able to compare that to other months and such. Well, you can do that all with this one table pretty easily and without having to create a mess of all these different sheets and tables. So the first thing you may want to look at is sorting. This is the most basic way to do it. Notice here that the dates aren't exactly in order. There's some February dates and here's some March dates. Maybe this is just the order in which you entered the data in. If you sort a column, then you can get a much better picture of what's going on. So I can click to the right of A here for the first column and just use sort ascending and it sorts everything. So now all my January dates are together, all my February dates are together, and so on. So this is a very basic thing. It doesn't give you much additional data, but at least it does group all the things together. Now if you really wanted to see everything, say, for the month of January, you could do that with a filter. You could click here to the right of column A and use a quick filter right here. And then it's going to show you all the different options, which are a ton of different things because there are all these different dates. So that's not going to be very useful. Instead, if you go to Show Filter Options, then it's going to take you to Organize Filter on the right here. And you can add a filter. Let's do it for the date column. And you see all those checkboxes again. But if you click Date here on the left, notice that you could set a range. So I'm going to do In the Range and set it for, say, March 1st, 2022 to March 31st, 2022. And now I can see all of my March records here. I could easily change that to April here. I'll just set it up like that and I can easily see through a filter what's going on for each month. So it doesn't give me much additional data and it's kind of annoying to have to set the start and end date. But a better way would be to just add categories. So instead of choosing Quick Filter or Show Filter Options, I'm going to choose Add Category for Date. And when I do, you can see it's going to break up all of my data by month. Why by month? Well, it's going to assume that because I've got dates that span several months. But I could change that. If I go to Organize and then Categories, I could see here the categories are now set up for date by year month. Year month because not all the January dates will be grouped together. Just the January ones for 2022. If there was 2021, those will be grouped separately. So I could change that to, say, year week, year quarter if I want. I could change it to day of week and we'll group all of those together. So I've got a lot of options here. Let's go back to year month and you can see I've got January grouped together. I could close January, open it up. I could option click and it closes them all and I could just open one group up. So this already is kind of like filters but a little easier to deal with. Plus I can easily get totals and other operations. If I look at these cells here and I select one, see this little button that appears to the right of it? I can click it and say I want the sum. And you can see how it gives me the sum of all the values for just this group. And I can do the same thing here. I'm going to do sum and it's going to give me the sum of all that. And I can see it appears for all of the other groups. So for instance, here's March. It's the sum of all of those. Notice that my categories don't necessarily sort the way I want them to, but I can click here at the first column, the column before A now, the categories column there. And I could sort groups and I could say sort by date, year, month, ascending. And you can see now it sorts correctly. And now I've got these great sums here, and you saw there were other things that I could do here, say averages or counts or maximums, minimums, all of that. And I've got a handy way to see all of this data readily available to me in categories. Another thing that you can do that's very similar to categories is to use pivot tables. So selecting this table here, I can click on pivot table at the top or organize and then create pivot table, and I could do it on the current sheet instead of a new one. So now it's going to appear here to the right. And now with the pivot table selected, I can decide what goes in the pivot table. I'm going to want dates. I'm going to want products, and you can see how it creates those there. And notice how the dates have the same options here, year, month, year, quarter, year, week, however I want to do it. The same thing as in categories. And now I can decide what data actually goes in those boxes. So I could say I want amounts, and the amounts go in here. I could say sale, and the sale number goes in there. If I have both, then you can see how it groups both of them together so I can see all of this data. This is the exact same data I saw before in categories, but now it's separate. So I can't expand these to see all of the information under them, but I have it instead side by side with everything calculated over here based on the data here. And I could simply add new rows or update data in here, use the button at the top right corner here to update the pivot table, and all the values will be recalculated. So whether you choose to use categories or pivot tables, the results are going to be the same. It's just going to look different. So it's a matter of how you want to see your information. So I want to show you one more technique, and that's how to use categories to be able to arbitrarily put different rows together. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to create another row, and I'm going to call this included. And for this I'm going to go to Format, Cell, and I'm going to set it to a checkbox. Then I'm going to copy, double click on E up here at the top and paste so it's all checkboxes. So now let's say I want to include certain rows in some calculations. I can check these like that and say I just want to include those rows. I'd like to see the sum of information there. Well, if I use E here as the categories, so I'll select it there and then say add category for included. Now you can see I've got a group for not included and a group for is included. And if I want to sort them the other way, which could be useful, I can go in here and I could change the sort order. So I'm going to sort included groups descending. So now the checkboxes are up here. If I want to add one to this, I check it and it jumps to the top. If I want to remove one, I uncheck it and it jumps to the bottom. Plus, I could go in here and I could add a sum for this. I could add a sum for this. And now I can see I've got 5 items here. That's the total. If I add a couple more to it, now I've got 8 items and that's the total. And now I can group them as I want. Instead of checkboxes, I could allow myself to enter in anything I want. 1, 2, 3, A, B, C, the names of things, whatever, here, and have the categories update as I change the values, and then it will group them together and calculate things for me. And then if I want to dismiss that, I could always go to Organize, Categories, and turn it off, and then continue to use the data in other ways, and then turn categories on, and it returns to this mode. So there's a lot you can do with categories for organizing your data, for calculating things from your data if you keep all of your data inside of one table. So I encourage you as you develop your spreadsheets to put the records that are part of your database in a single table and learn to use these tools instead of dividing the data up in multiple tables and sheets. Hope you found this useful. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, click the thumbs up button below to let me know. I publish new tutorials each weekday. Hit the subscribe button so you don't miss out.